Here are today's episode highlights.
We were debating how to touch this topic lightly because I know it's very sensitive to so many people, so many friends watching, so many just communities, right, that are being affected by this issue, which is immigration. Con el corazón en la mano y aquí en la mano te damos la bienvenida a Jessica Dominguez, Ángel de la Justicia. That's who you are to us.
Who is in danger or at risk of being detained? All of us, including me, including my kids. I could tell you stories that have happened to my own kids. Why? We have to say it as it is because of the color of my skin.
Immigrants are a part of this country. They are not the other. They are the people that make this country run. Let's get that straight.
Let me ask you a question. What good does it do you to keep bringing that fear into your home? If what's going to happen is going to happen regardless of whether you sleep at night or not, right?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
That's a very good point.
I have a question. I think there is a lot of fear out there. Who is getting arrested? Where are they getting arrested? Can ICE just come and arrest anybody?
The dreamers can look forward to something. The other question is when. Nobody knows when, but it's going to have to be sooner than we expected because the dreamers need to somehow get this status.
Hate it when leaders or even people that I know still use that term, illegal aliens. Esa es una ofensa que la verdad se me revuelve el estómago.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The majority of
You're
people
a
are
criminal.
okay with that.
You don't
Yes.
deserve
we
being
don't
in the
need you.
United States.
Right? So
Absolutely.
I think something is coming. I wish God sent me the letter as to when, but if he does, I'll let you know.
Staying home is not the answer either. And so we have to find those common grounds of hope and, and moving forward with your life.
I know we have a lot of moms watching us. This is the moment when you sit down with your kids and you tell them that we can see things with glasses that are going to see everything dark, or we take off those glasses and put on our glasses of hope.
¿Cómo te pueden seguir todas las comadritas?
Oh, tan lindas. Nomás busquen Abogada Latinas.
Así.
En TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
You're on
YouTube.
TikTok.
You're on
Yes.
TikTok.
I'm not even on TikTok. Oh, mírala qué moderna.
Hey girl, welcome! We've been waiting for you. Bienvenida. We are four comadres and we are so excited to have you here. I am Argelia.
I am Mindy.
I am Diana.
And I'm Janet.
This is Comadres
Unfiltered.
¡Salud!
Eso, comadritas. Tanto tiempo sin vernos. So nice to see, comadritas.
We're back.
We are back. And the house is full. Welcome, comadritas, watching us at home, in the office maybe, during your lunch break, or listening on the, in the car.
Yeah.
Or while you're doing
way to
your
work.
errands. See, I mean, nowadays,
drive.
we're everywhere. Thank you so much for making episode 1 so special and episode 2. And episode 3 is going to be amazing as well and powerful. And so, yes, we just want to start with that. Powerful. That's the word, I think. Today's episode definitely is one of the most important, I think, and complex and compelling issues that we will talk about on this platform. We were debating how to touch this topic lightly because I know it's very sensitive to so many people, so many friends watching, so many just communities, right, that are being affected by this issue, which is immigration. Immigration, as you know, has always been a deeply personal and complex, difficult issue in this country, especially now in 2025. Right now, uncertainty is at an all-time high. Policies are shifting. Enforcement is tightening, and millions of families live with fear and anxiety, and they're just unsure of what is next. What lies ahead? What is my future? Forget the future. What is my present? That is just the reality. So for so many in our communities, immigration isn't just a political issue, as we were saying. We're not going to talk about the administration. We're not even going to mention the names of political figures because that is not the topic. That is not the essence. That is not the angle of this episode. The angle of this episode is humanity. Just the human side, the human aspect. We are seeing families being torn apart, and we want to know, how do we cope with that reality? How do we help? How do we tackle that conversation? Even within ourselves, right, Janet, Diana, and Mindy? We were like, how do we even process this? Because we have family and friends that are being affected, loved ones. and we don't have the right words. We assume. I mean, during our production meetings, we're like, no, it's this and that. We're like, we don't know that. That is why it's so important to have a professional, an expert. And so today we have a fifth comadre join us in this room. Popular, beloved immigration lawyer, amazing human being. You've seen her on TV. You've seen her out in the community. This is her life work. This is her purpose, to help families going through immigration battles. And so, con el corazón en la mano y aquí en la mano, te damos la bienvenida a Jessica Dominguez, Ángel de la Justicia. That's who you are to us. Thank you so much for being here today. We know how busy you are, especially now. El otro día le hablé y eran las 6:15 de la tarde cuando me contestaste, literally leaving your office.
Yes.
When you should be at home with your family. But
Working hard right now.
You're working hard. And so this is, se me china la piel de todo lo que acabamos de decir. And it's just, there's so much to tackle. I don't even know where to begin because there's just so much.
There are more questions than answers,
Absolutely.
right now, especially for so many of us, like that you mentioned, that are going through just so much uncertainty right now. And I think there's different parts of this. There's knowing the law, right? Because there's so many moving parts, and also just knowing the history of why we are where we are, because it hasn't been just now. It's been a cumulative effort. Like over the past, since '86, we haven't had any, immigrant reform. Nothing. And so, so we are where we are, but there's an added layer of stress right now. There's an added layer of uncertainty. And we have a lot of family members that are affected, and a lot of friends that are affected, and a lot of our, audience that's affected. And so thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
What do you think about our room? First of all, I'm like, what do you think about our podcast room? Because Jessica Dominguez has her own podcast, Mujeres Victoriosas, which, by the way, I had to bring her first book.
Thank you.
Love it.
This is the
Can't
first.
wait to read it.
I mean, this is an amazing book. She's an author as well. I don't know where she finds the time, but she wrote this many years ago. ¿Qué año fue? 2016? 2006?
It's been at least almost 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
Mujeres Victoriosas. This is a movement empowering women. And so we'll talk about the second book. But where do we even begin? Para empezar, how are you coping? I know that your entire life, you dedicated yourself to helping families navigate immigration policy, fear. Pero ahorita, con todo lo que está pasando, let's start there. How are you as a lawyer coping? And how are you as a human being coping?
Very good question. First, I think that this is beautiful. I think that the room is definitely, because you asked that question. I love it. But what I like the most is this. Just having 4 women who can talk to us, who can open their hearts, because that's what it's all about, right? Right now, we're going to talk to women out there who may have the same question about their lives. They're having to deal with their homes, marriage, work, and at the same time, the fear of having to go to school and pick up their children from school. That's the type of days that they're having nowadays. I surround myself with women who have been in my life for decades. One of my friends is 92 years old. Another one just turned 90. Just to give you an example. So these are very wise women. And when I'm at my worst, because there are days when I've cried with 15 people that day, I can call and ask for literally my prayer warriors, my friends. And I say, this is what's happening. And they remind me, look, you love these families, but you can't love them more than God loves them. So He's in control. Leave it up to them. And that gives me the ability to focus more on my spiritual walk instead of suffering with the clients and the families that are going through this. And my husband, who's been in my life for 39 years, my 2 sons as well, they hear me a lot. I get to talk to them a lot. And that really helps, because when they can tell me, Jessica, you're doing everything you can. You need to take care of yourself. It's a good reminder that if I don't take care of Jessica, how am I going to give my best to the rest of the world?
Yes, exactly.
Great point.
And I know that you're a woman of faith. So for you, everything starts with faith.
Yes.
Many of our subscribers, we're all people of faith. And these families, our communities, I think that's what keeps it together, that hope and that faith, la esperanza, de que todo va a estar bien.
You just said something that's key. I've been to the White House a couple of times, and many times we've spoken about comprehensive immigration reform. And one of the things that everyone talks about is how Hispanics are the only culture that believe of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So they bring their faith with them. Isn't that beautiful? And I think that's what's given our community the strength that they need nowadays.
Sí. Es que
Absolutely.
sin fe no somos nada. Digo, for the us that strongly believe in that and we're raised like that and we continue that tradition or that philosophy with our children, faith is the glue, really. It's what keeps us together. I mean, we just went through devastation in the city of LA with the fires and if it's not for hope and faith, how do we rebuild, right?
Right.
But talking about rebuilding, who rebuilds this country? Our people.
Our people.
But what's going to happen if our people are sent back to their home where I'm sure they want to be, but this is where
This is their home.
This is home.
This is what they call home
where
now.
they built it with their family. So like that's the conversation we need to have. Okay. Our people are being sent back, but at the same time we're rebuilding this country, especially the city. How do we work around that?
Well, let's clarify, because one of the things that we must remind everyone who's watching or listening is that we are in the United States. The United States of America has a constitution, and there are many rights that all of us have, regardless of whether we're undocumented or not. And in addition to that, something that everyone needs to know is that not everyone who's getting detained nowadays, it's going to get deported. Let me explain.
Okay.
When you see people that are getting deported daily, right, it's an issue of optic. They need to show, certain people need to show, look, there are thousands of people getting deported. So you see the news and it's like, oh my gosh, everyone's getting deported. Let me explain. If you're trying to cross the border, your rights are very limited. Why? Because every border of every country is being protected. What that means is that in less than 4 hours, you could be sent back to your country. So many people from Central America say that they're Mexicans. Why? Because there's an agreement between the U.S. and Mexico, so they get sent back very quickly. So when you see them leaving very quickly, those are the people, this happens every day. And we have to remember what the president of Mexico said. I loved her. She said, the numbers have not gone up. This is what we have seen for the previous year or so. So let's not get confused. We have to be really smart. If I could give a challenge to your audiences, turn it off.
Okay.
When you know that it's all about fear, turn it off and move on, because you're watching something that it's getting your attention so you can continue to watch. And all you're bringing to your life and the life of your families is fear.
Fear. That's right.
Get to a place where you can watch something that you know it's going to be very objective. For example, what about those 3 airplanes that we saw the first week going back? You're thinking, oh my gosh, everybody's getting deported. Let me tell you, those people have been in proceedings for months. Many of them had been processed. It is impossible, if you're not from Mexico, for immigration to detain you and deport you immediately. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you need a salvoconducto or your passport. And let me tell you, if you're from Central America and South America, you don't walk around with your passport. And if you do have it at home, you're not going to give it to ICE to deport you in 3 hours, right? So it's a process that needs to be followed. Having said that, do we need to be concerned? Absolutely. We need to be concerned, because the truth of the matter is that under the previous administration, we were not a priority. And when I say we, the majority of undocumented people, millions, 12 to 50 million people undocumented, are people of good moral character. They've been here for many years. That means that if they get detained by the authority, guess what? If you know your rights, here are your rights. Just say, with all due respect, this is my name. My attorney has told me not to speak. And that way you're taking the responsibility away from you, right? And I'm just respect my right to remain silent. And they're going to take you in. They're going to process you. You're going to get a call, and you can call, don't call your lawyer. Your lawyer won't answer you 2, 3 in the morning. But you can call your relative and memorize that number. See, a lot of people that are watching us, they think they're going to have their cell phones. You're not going to have your cell phone. Memorize the number of someone who you know it's going to answer.
That's a great tip.
That's a really good tip. Yes.
So memorize the number of a relative or a friend. Relative.
Yes, a relative,
friend,
because you know
a relative.
they're
They're going to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
A relative that's going to answer
I would
your
say
call
too, because
from the
sometimes
office.
someone's sleeping, and then that person has to be in contact with your attorney. And the first question they're going to ask you is, where are you? So if you've already been taken and you know you're in a van, you're in a car, pay attention. Where are they taking me? You won't know, right? Your audience is all over the United States. They don't know where they're being taken. And once you get into that place, ask the person who are being detained, how many days have you been here? Because then you tell your relative all that information. I'm here. It's taken 3 to 4 days for someone to get processed. So in that way, your family is not worried. They're not concerned. They don't think you're getting deported.
Right.
And they cannot deport you unless you accept your voluntary departure. Now, someone
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody is going to write a comment here, I can assure you, saying, that's not what happened to my cousin. That's not what happened to my neighbor.
Right.
He didn't sign anything and he already got deported. Well, let's clarify. They're different groups. If you were given the opportunity to go see a judge and you didn't show up, that's a deportation in absentia. You don't have the right to be sent to see a judge again. Why? Because you already disobeyed that order.
Okay.
So if you're in that situation, are you going to wait to get detained and be deported immediately? No. Go see an attorney now. In many cases, I have had to tell many people this. Look, if you get detained, yes, they're going to deport you. They're not going to give us the opportunity for you to go see a judge. Am I going to fight with everything, my team and I, to keep you here while we have your family petition pending?
Right.
Of course we will. But there's a very little space where the officer can have the discretion to allow you to stay when you had so many years and didn't take care of that deportation order. So what's my next advice? Because I have to be very realistic. It pains me so much, but I have to have husband and wife there and I have to tell them, you have to have that conversation. You have to have that conversation. If he gets removed, it's going to be at least 3 to 5 years before he comes back.
Wow.
And I have to say the same about the wife. Is it painful? Yes, more than you know. Because
But the separation, right?
Especially because there's children. So
Kids. Children
that conversation, you encourage the conversation, don't sugarcoat it, talk to your kids and tell them this is what might happen, right? That's tough.
that's tough.
So I love what you're saying because what we see in the news, you're right. It's going like the bigger picture. The administration is trying to send out a message. They're delivering on their campaign.
Yes.
We get that. But we don't know the details of what really happens in the moment because we're not there. We're not in their shoes. But me seeing, for example, the news on how LAUSD is preparing the kids by giving them the little red card or white card with numbers. And that to me, it tells me, okay, they're on top of preparing the children, but it's also because it's a reality of telling children, your mom and dad might not come to pick you up today. And that's a conversation that I hope parents are having first with their children and not waiting for a school district to educate them or inform them or prepare
them. And I have another question for you because you brought up such a great point. So one of the biggest tips we should also give our viewers is that they should also have some sort of attorney contact in hand. Don't wait until you are, stopped or anything. It's already work on it. Have that in part as part of the plan, right? To have that attorney information, to reach out to an attorney and have that number available.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I do want to tell your audience that unfortunately, there's a little bit of everything, right? For example, you should not hire an attorney who's going to sell you a letter saying, here, you're protected, because that's not true. I can give you a copy of your entire file and you're not protected. Yeah. What's going to protect you is your good moral character, right? The fact that you know your rights, that you're not going to sign anything that you don't understand, and that you're very polite when the whole thing is happening. I know it sounds crazy, but I could tell you a story. So
yes.
The officer will then use his discretion to either give you what we call a fianza, right? Or let you go on your own recognizance, puede salir bajo palabra, or even if he doesn't have the discretion, because they have supervisors, for some reason, let's say, they can't allow you to leave the detention center with a fianza, they'll send you to see a judge. And at that time, your attorney will fight for that. My advice is don't make the assumption that any attorney is going to take your detention case. Don't make that assumption.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Because not everybody takes detention cases because we're overwhelmed with our own clients. But what you do is you go to someone who has already helped your neighbor, your prima, your primo. Don't go for someone who's just out there injecting fear. I always tell people, run away. I would run away from those places. Right. But if you go to the professional who helped your mom, your dad, your brother and say, look, this is my situation. There are 3 questions I want you to ask. First, what group do I belong to? Do I belong to the ones that are going to get deported immediately because I was already deported and came back illegally? That's a permanent bar.
Yes.
Permanent bar.
Yeah. Do I belong to the group of people that because they have good moral character, they have children born here, I've never committed a crime, I've never been to a judge.
Pay taxes.
And all that? Then good. If you belong to the other group who has a deportation in absentia, the attorney has to tell you, you belong to this group, these are the consequences, right? And then based on your consequences, prepare your plan. Something that you said that's really important is, and you mentioned it as well about the kids going to school, I think it is a parent's responsibility to get the power of attorney ready, which is not expensive at all. You're not hiring anyone. You're just saying, if I'm not available to pick up my kids, I give my tia permission to pick them up, to be in charge of the medical decisions, the educational decisions, until the time that they can go and meet me, wherever my country of origin
What a
is. So
great tip. Wow.
it's important to have that ready.
I have a question. I think there is a lot of fear out there. Who is getting arrested? Where are they getting arrested? Can ICE just come and arrest anybody? Like, who should be in fear of getting arrested? Because I feel like there's a lot of fear out there. Like, people think that ICE is just going to bust open into a supermarket.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And it's not just ICE. There's other entities. There's like 2 or 3 entities that are working
Besides
together.
ICE.
So it's not just ICE. That's the tricky
But
part.
I want to use this platform to inform people, that they don't have to be scared to drive their kids to school
Or they should be.
necessarily. That's
Well, I love your question because I always tell clients that fear is false evidence appearing real. Why are you afraid? Because you're thinking that the worst is going to happen. And I always say, you've known me for years, that the opposite of fear is faith. Now, a lot of people out there are going to be like, well, I mean, you're asking me to have faith in the midst of so much fear. Yes, that's what I'm asking you to do, because you know what? The majority of you have not committed a crime. The majority of you have paid your taxes. The majority of you have...
Pueden dormir tranquilos. O sea, tienen paz en su conciencia.
Buscando, pero going back to that, who is in danger or at risk of being detained? All of us, including me, including my kids. I could tell you stories that have happened to my own kids. Why? We have to say it as it is because of the color of my skin. And what the law says for, if you've watched the movies about criminal law, you must have a probable cause, right? Or else they can't search your car.
Right.
When it comes to immigration law, all the agent needs to have, the federal agent just needs to have a reasonable belief that I'm undocumented.
Wow.
So that means they can go to the train stations, they can go to Greyhound.
It's
Racial
profiling.
profiling. Is it racial profiling?
Under the law, that's the argument that could be made, but they're just going to tell you, no, I asked him for the ID. He didn't have one. That's good enough for me. And the law has said, because we don't have IDs. Think about this. If you have a matricula consular here in California, what are you pretty much confessing? That you can't get a real driver's license,
Matricula
right?
consular.
Right.
Sí.
I'm saying that I'm from this country. If you carry around your passport, what are you saying? Well, I'm pretty much confessing I'm from another country. So who is at risk? I think all of us. It's not just ICE now working by themselves. They have different agencies who are investigating human trafficking, drugs. So in the midst of that investigation, they can go and ask questions of everyone. And what our community needs to know, can they go into the market? I haven't seen cases where they actually went inside unless they were looking for someone. They can be outside of the market if they're in the midst of an investigation. But I truly believe that we're not going to see that many of those because they don't have that many people that are available to go for enforcement. In other, and I'm talking about California, Los Angeles, right?
Sí.
But in other areas of the country, you just saw the tacos gangas, where it was, there were 4 officers that just went and detained 3 people. Now, we don't know if the door was closed. And what have we told you over and over and over and over? If they don't have a warrant for your arrest, why are you opening the door?
They cannot come in.
It's a civil.
It has to be a warrant signed by a judge.
Yes, by a judge, and they don't have one, so don't open the door. And they start asking questions, and the worst mistake you can make is just. Why are you answering? Honestly, you're making their job easier. And for all of you out there, because I know, I read your comments, there are a lot of people out there that are going to say, oh, this attorney is telling all these criminals, how to avoid the law. Let's get it right. I'm advising people about their rights. If you don't know the law, don't make those comments because these are real human beings. Their fathers, their mothers who are giving their best, taking care of your elderly, who are cleaning your houses, who are cleaning your pools. Don't get me going. So
I love that you say that because this even happens within families. I'm not going to say names because I don't want to get in trouble and be attacked in the next family meeting. But this is a hot topic. And even within our families, because there are many of us, I raise my hand, we're like, this is not good. This is something that we need to talk about. This is very heavy for many, many people, right? Like here I am, just sharing my thoughts, and then you'll hear that one family member, ay, tú siempre pensando lo peor, like obviously they're only going for criminals, and that's what they're downplaying the reality. And I'm thinking, okay, one thing is to not know, like, and I'm happy that you're here because you're cleaning a lot of things up, and I'm happy because me siento más tranquila. Pero otra cosa es no mostrar empatía. No mostrar empatía. Like, the fact that I'm worried for someone that is not even a family member, like, I genuinely am worried. I don't know what that says about me, but to me, I mean, el otro día fue a misa y lo primero que dijo el padre, and I love what he said, and it resonated, and I want to repeat this to that family member. La mejor manera de demostrar amor incondicional al prójimo, the best way to express unconditional love to our brothers or sisters or neighbors is justicia. Justice. That's justice. If you think about it, justice is, forget the law. Justice in human terms is showing unconditional love for our brothers and sisters.
And not just people you know, but also for people you don't know.
Strangers.
That's the only way justice exists.
Exactly, but
it's for those that you know and for those that you don't know.
Exacto. So I only bring it up, Jessica, because even within our own families, there's so many different mentalities. And I'm not saying you need to hear me out, I'm always right. No, but try to understand where I'm coming from. And I'll try to understand where you're coming from without shutting me down.
I think it's because we do want those bad people to be arrested and deported. Of course, who wouldn't want that, right? We do want all the criminals to be out of here. But the truth is, not all of the Latinos are criminals. You know, the majority, they're hardworking people that have families here that are doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do.
But so guess what,
those are the people that, you know, I want to protect.
You said something powerful. Yeah. Not all those people are criminals.
Exactly.
But what is the new administration saying in the press conferences?
There's a lot to unpack, even within what we just said. So what's happening here is a lot of misinformation. A lot, and these particular stories that have been highlighted of immigrants committing crimes are so few and far in between. That's not to say they don't happen. But what happens when you highlight these stories, there is a scapegoating aspect to this. They are the other. And so I am going to present you how the other are, and they become a stereotype. Criminals, all of them. You don't want that to happen. You don't want any of them, right? And so now we are criminalizing a whole group of people. What is that? That is racist. That is discrimination. And we don't necessarily put those two thoughts together. And to categorize a whole group of people for one or two, I mean, every single of us is part of a race or ethnicity. We cannot categorize everybody with the same paintbrush. We're just not all the same. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we have in common with other people. And so I think the misinformation that has been out there and the brush that has been painted on immigrants, that is, I think, the story that has been difficult to hear, because immigrants are a part of this country. They are not the other. They are the people that make this country run. Let's get that straight. Yeah. There is no way this country runs without immigrants. No way. There's no way. It's been looked at economically. LA, for example, is 60% Latino. That is not an accident. I think it's the second city with the most Mexicans outside of Mexico City. There is no other city in Mexico that has more Mexicans.
Are we taking our land back or what? What's going on here?
No, I mean, like we're taking our land back, right? You know, this was Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, it's San Diego,
Los Angeles,
right? And so there's we can't ignore those facts when we look at our people and when we look at their contributions. I mean, I don't have the figure in front of me, but I think it's $1.3 trillion that they put into the economy.
The economy, yeah.
That they don't get to take out.
Our economy, absolutely.
Right? And so I would ask you, Jessica, like, you know, when you are trying to present and defend these families, you know, against in front of a judge, and also against all these, you know, doubters and people that question and that have, you know, there are more questions and fear mongering. How do you respond to that?
I'll give you the same answer that I give my clients when they ask, Abogada, what other paper do I bring into? What's the best evidence? And I look right into their eyes and I tell them, the best evidence It's you,
Wow.
and you. They are the best evidence because these are people that work really hard to have what they have and to just show a judge that the good moral character they bring with them. They want to see that. An officer needs to see that. And of course, we make sure that they have all the requisitos, right? Because we're not just going to file an application. There are laws to protect them. So that's the good news. And they know. And that's the hope that I want to offer to you today. You're not alone. They're not going to knock on everyone's door. They're not going to do that. But if they do, just know your rights and know that the person who's knocking on your door is a human being as well. He's trying to do his job. But your attorney is going to do his or her job as well. They're going to defend you so that you can stay in this country. If you belong to one of the groups where you can still be here.
Right.
If not, if you belong to that group where you know you have a permanent bar, you're going to have to go outside of the country and wait for a waiver. Then have that conversation with your family. I have a lot of clients now who left many years ago just on their own. They got tired. No reforma, I'm just leaving.
Sí.
So they have to pay that 10-year bar. It's 8 years now, and we're starting the paperwork again. I have so many of those cases.
Wow.
Yeah, because while we wait for the approval, and the next step is going to be 10 years. So, and guess what? They're coming back happy. They're going to be with their kids.
Okay.
So there's always something that you can look forward to, but you must be well informed. And let me ask you a question. What good does it do you to keep bringing that fear into your home? If what's going to happen is going to happen regardless of whether you sleep at night or not, right?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
That's a very good point.
It is true.
It's like living in fear or living and, knowing your rights, knowing the information. That's also very important.
But when you don't know the information, that's when the fear kicks in. For example,
more.
the app that disappeared from one day to another within hours or minutes. And there were so many people in their process, in line. And it already takes forever, right?
So what app are you talking about, comadre?
This is the app
CBP
that's
One.
CBP1, which is
Okay.
CBP1 se dice así, ¿verdad? Which is it's an app that helps a lot of Jessica can explain it better.
Great.
Pero ayuda mucho a la gente a su reforma en este país.
What happened is that, as you know, so many more people are trying to come into the country to ask for asylum. But it just got out of hand because so many people wanted to come through, and it was impossible for the officers to handle all the people at once. So what the administration did is they created this app, and people would have to use it to get an appointment. And once they had the appointment, then they could come to the port of entry and be processed. When this administration came, they said we're no longer going to do that, and hence the app is gone.
The app was called
CBP, Customs and Border Patrol.
Customs and Border Patrol. Wow. So now with no app, if people want to check in on their citas, like where do they go? O sea, ya no hay manera?
Well, this administration has said that no, they're not going to get appointments, that it's going to go back to the old process, which is you go to the port of entry, and many of them are not coming through. They're not being given the opportunity to apply for asylum.
How difficult is that?
They're basically being rejected.
Yeah.
right?
Well,
At
they
the-
go
at the
through a
border.
process. It's called the credible fear interview, but a lot of them don't have enough evidence with them. Hence, they get denied and they get removed.
And this is mostly for people seeking asylum.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, which leads me to my next question, which is immigration reform. I don't think we've had any comprehensive immigration reform policies since '86. I think it was
Correct.
the last time with Reagan. I know my parents
Immigrated through that.
received their immigration and also their citizenship after that because of that policy. There are a lot of people, and we're talking about misinformation earlier, but there are a lot of people that say get in line. But then I also, through this process of learning, I read that if they had applied, there was different categories, but if they had applied for, an economic refugee, for example, that they're now looking in 2025 at files that were started in 2001.
Same.
So I'm not sure what about that is, true.
That's
and
a long time.
misinformation. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know. I have a lot of friends that ask, why is my housekeeper undocumented? She's been here for 30 years. And somebody else has that answer. Oh, they don't know. The truth is, for example, let's say you're a U.S. citizen and you have a brother who's from Mexico, 22 to 24 year wait. That's how long it takes for your brother to eventually get a visa.
24.
What about
Let that sink in. 22 to 24 years.
Yeah.
When they're talking about get in line.
Get in line.
Because they don't know.
Right.
And if you're from another country who speaks Spanish that is not Mexico, the wait is between 16 and 18 years. So that's a long time. What about a U.S. citizen parent of someone who's over 21 from Mexico, you're looking at a 20-year wait as well.
Yeah,
so
20-year
that
wait.
get in line. People really don't know. They just think they know, but they're not. So let's talk about comprehensive immigration reform. So like your parents, a lot of the parents of my clients or grandparents of my clients, if you ask them, who is your favorite president? Reagan. That's like, and
Hear
they
that all
tell
the
you
time.
why, because they got reform back then. So it's been said that a certain president likes his name to be mentioned. So this is the process of them saying, let's remove as many people as we can, but eventually we are going to look up comprehensive immigration reform. Now, that could mean many things, because with good is going to come the bad. They're going to just do so many changes. For example, to the border. It could be that you can no longer come through the border and get asylum unless 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, which a lot of people are not going to be able to meet, right? What about people who work in the fields, right? Agriculture. It's a field that they've mentioned in the past. The dreamers can look forward to something. The other question is when. Nobody knows when, but it's going to have to be sooner than we expected, because the dreamers need to somehow get this status.
Yeah.
Another thing that has been said in the meetings, but what worries me is that it's not the first time that it gets mentioned, but when there are meetings behind the doors, people from certain organizations know this, that it's been said that if you've been here this many years, you have children that are born here, you can at least get a work permit and permission, like an advance parole, to go outside of the country and come back. That's gold for the majority of people who are listening to us. The majority of my clients will be happy. And if you know, in the Senate, over 15 years ago, there was a bill that was offering that. But some community-based organizations said, no, we want a path to citizenship or nothing. Back then, we didn't have social media. Back then, we didn't give the millions of immigrants the opportunity to answer that question. But if you ask them, even if that future law does not include citizenship, would you go for it? And I can assure you that the majority of them would say, give me my work permit, give me the opportunity to go visit my country. I want to be here legally. I'm going to continue to behave, because part of the future law would say, if you commit a crime, you're going to get deported. But that's already happening. Certain crimes make you deportable anyways.
And
So I'm
that's
thinking,
okay. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The majority of
You're
people
a
are
criminal.
okay with that.
You don't deserve
we
being
don't
in the
need you.
United States.
Right? So
Absolutely.
I think something is coming. I wish God sent me the letter as to when, but if he does, I'll let you know. But something good should be happening.
Well,
for
that
our
is
community.
that's true. It's immigration reform for people who are already here. They're contributing to the United States and our, economy and our people and our culture. So that would be amazing. But it just seems like every administration, not just the one we're in, has always moved that buck along, and they've never really addressed it, including the dreamers. The dreamers should have been taken care of
Long time
time
ago.
ago.
That's a no-brainer to me.
Yes.
To know that our dreamers are still in this limbo. Like they're just being tousled back and forth as a political
sad.
card, and they use them as an excuse or whatnot. And in the end, in the meantime, our dreamers are losing sleep, are losing energy and income, because they deserve all the benefits of the country. This is their home. I mean, they've been here since age of 1, 2, or 5, lo que sea. El punto es que aquí crecieron, aquí estudiaron, aquí trabajaron, son profesionales. Many of them are professionals already. To know that they don't have the benefits and the citizenship, to me, is still mind-blowing.
It's very mind-blowing.
I mean, where do you see the crime there?
Now,
if we're talking about
dreamers?
criminals, because
Yeah,
I know that, sorry to
exactly.
interrupt you, Coma,
Yeah.
but the other day we saw the press conference, coming from, the White House. And the crime is the fact that you just crossed the border illegally. Okay. The dreamers tenían 1 año, 2, 3, eran bebés. ¿Cómo le llamas a un niño criminal?
And Dreamers is DACA? Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
DACA, Dreamers.
It's
She will
defer
separate.
action for childhood arrivals.
Got it.
Because as part of that executive action, you had to be under 16 when you came in.
Okay.
For that reason, they don't have the intent. So just going back to the White House issue, we would be here another 3 hours, but they're absolutely wrong. I don't have time to go into it, but they're absolutely wrong. And that's why they're rights. That's why people, if they don't sign, if they get detained, and their attorneys will fight the cases till the end, right? And I think you're going to go into this I get a lot of comments from people who say, but I may not be able to hire a lawyer. I may not be able to see an attorney. Well, to those people, I want to say there are community-based organizations who have attorneys working for them. Please don't go to the llena papeles. Don't go just because somebody tells you this is the best that I can offer. Go to the CBOs who have attorneys working for them.
Can you repeat that?
funding.
So the CBOs,
Community-based organizations.
community-based organizations, and do you highlight any of them that you know of that they can maybe look into?
There are so many, and I think if you're going to add this to your webpage, I'll be more than happy to send you a list.
We
will.
have a link to that.
Wonderful.
And
For
Let's
sure.
have a link to that.
For sure, because as it is, it's already overwhelming for these families. Imagine to do the research.
Yeah.
So if you can provide us with the link, it would be wonderful.
Community-based organizations. They're the heartbeat of
That's it.
every neighborhood.
Yeah, who have attorneys
Exactly.
working for them. And go to their charlas. Don't wait to be detained to go and knock on the door. Go to the charlas. They have them once a month. Listen, what happened to my neighbor? Well, this person got detained. As attorneys, what we're learning right now, it's pretend we have just opened a book and the days are going by, so chapters are going, but we have half of the story only. What they tell us, so many people got detained, but we haven't been able to speak to those people. Why were you detained? Right? Did they come in the middle of the night? Did you have a crime? Also, if you're scared, because remember, we get so many comments. Can they break my door? And you've seen them. Haven't you seen that in the news when they come? What is that big metal thing that
Right.
Oh, yes.
Well, let me tell you, they had a warrant for that person for their arrest. So this was not so much ICE. This was an investigation because this person had committed certain crimes.
right.
Okay.
And this person was being looked for and they had been hiding. So if you don't open the door and they have a warrant, then certain federal agencies do that.
Yes.
So that doesn't mean that's going to happen to you. And you have something that we didn't have many years ago. And that is people around you, they're going to be taking pictures. They're already sharing the videos. So
Yes.
Right.
Everybody with the phone nowadays is a journalist.
It's a journalist. They're taking
Everybody with the
footage.
phone, we document. We are journalists. Y esto viene a salvar muchas cosas, en muchos casos, injustices, right? Like for sure. Talking
But it
about
can also be misleading. So I like that you
Sí.
say that some of that stuff that you're watching, it's not just like these people going, oh, they just broke open my
criminals.
door.
Yeah.
They're also maybe not sharing that they already had some criminal background.
right.
So I think that's important too
Yeah.
to share
Yes.
because
Yeah.
like you said, because anybody can go and misinterpret it.
See,
and say
re-edit
that.
and
We're all
Right.
watching TikTok and
Right.
social media. We're not
Exactly.
getting the whole
We're
picture.
not getting the whole
But it's
story.
important to
We're
take
not
these
getting the whole
particular
story.
stories, right? And leave them at that and not paint a whole group of people with that brush.
Exactly.
That's really, really,
Yes.
really important to do. Remember, we don't want to be classified as one people for the bad things that we do because
Sí.
not all of us are painted with the same brush.
Sí.
So all these stories, it's like I take those with a grain of salt. Okay,
Yes.
that's a very individual story that needs to stay at that.
I love that. It's because social media is a very great tool to use for the right
Very
purposes.
powerful, yes.
But it's also a very dangerous tool because things get misconstrued, things get re-edited.
Yes.
I've been seeing videos that scare me that deal with immigration, and then I realize I committed this crime, social media crime, by reposting it because I fell for it. And a good friend of mine who's watching said, she literally sent me a text. She said, Amiga, take it down. That video is 5 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it made it seem like it was happening right now. So we have to be we have to do our research.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we can't just go based off on, oh my God, that's an alarming video. I need to
Yes.
share because it's happening right now at this neighborhood. Y no, tenemos que, okay, take a step back.
Yes.
Where is it coming from? And you kind of start doing your little research and you realize, oh crap, like this came out of some influencer that just wants to get an algorithm going, right? So see, we have to be very careful on what we share on social media.
But I love the tip that you were giving. It's be proactive.
See.
You know, go to those community meetings and like ask all the questions and be connected with that community.
Sí.
So that if anything happens, you know, you're prepared and ready to go. And also you've already made relationships with some of the key people in that community.
Yeah,
So that's
And with each other.
with each other, exactly.
And on your webpage also, there's going to be a link about a red card that they can print for free.
right.
And this card just says, again, it's not going to protect you, right? Because if you're in the middle of just officers showing up and detaining people at work, by showing it, you're just saying, I know my rights. Please don't ask me any questions because I'm not going to answer them. And then on the back of the card, it's in Spanish and it tells you, no abras la puerta, right? Ask for the warrant. Or a retired immigration officer ICE officer actually told my audience, just don't talk to them. Why are you talking to them?
Oh, really? So just don't talk to them.
Right. Why are you answering any questions
know.
if you
That's plead the fifth.
Plead the
Right.
fifth.
Don't, so you're not incriminated
Yeah.
for anything that you may say.
Now let's talk about people that are coming here illegally, right? People that are crossing the border, coming illegally. I mean, what rights do they have? Because they are crossing the border. They're not doing things the right way, right? Like everybody's saying, get on the line, get on the line. The line is so long.
Decades.
And they're desperate to get here, right? To work or send money back to their families and work really hard. So those people, what advice can we give them, during these times, right?
Yeah, I think the best explanation we can give is regardless of the fact that you came in yesterday or the day before, or you've been here for 10 years, if you came in without status, without permission, you are all undocumented. It's kind of the same group.
Yes.
The difference is the location. The law is written in such a way that if you're already here and inside of the U.S., you've been residing here for so many years, that gives you rights that you can go to a judge and fight your case. But when you're at the border, it's not that you don't have rights, but you have less rights in that because the officers need to protect the border under the law, you can be removed in less than 4 hours because you're going to get processed. Exactly. You're going to get processed quickly. So what I can tell you is that, and I know many of you probably know a little bit of English, pero lo que te puedo decir es que yo sé que es difícil porque gastaste mucho, tal vez vendiste todo lo que tenías para pagarle a alguien que te traiga a la frontera. Sí. Y lo siento, pero la ley es bien estricta. Cuando se trata de coming through the border, it's not an open border. It's not going to allow everyone to come in. And I know that you want to come and ask for asylum, and you should have that right and you should have that opportunity, but different administrations answer your need differently. And under this administration, it's not going to be as easy. So don't just believe anyone who's selling you this dream, because if anything, people get removed from the border every day.
Wow. You know, talking about rights and knowing your rights.
Thank you for that.
Let's talk about the 14th Amendment. I mean, the Constitution is clear. If you're born in the United States of America, in this soil, automatically you are granted citizenship, birthrights. So how do we explain, how are we even dealing with the reality that we have many conocidos, family and friends that have been here undocumented? I never like to use the word illegal aliens, by the way. Right. I hate it when leaders or even people that I know still use that term, illegal aliens. Esa es una ofensa que la verdad se me revuelve el estómago. But undocumented families that have had their children here, how do we explain the fact that is this really going to happen because of this executive order that was signed on January of this year, where that will be stripped away from a child that was born in this country? So what are we going to put in their document? Where they were born in la luna, en el universo? Like, will that ever happen? I don't think that will happen. Tell me, Jessica, that's not going to happen.
I've had many clients come in with their kids, the kids crying and asking that question, including relatives of mine, by the way, right? Wow. Asking this question. And what I've had to talk to them about is history. This is not the first time that this happens. This has been an area in politics where certain people like to use it just to scare people, right? Because that's not a deterrence. Saying that if you're undocumented, your child is, what, are you not going to have babies? Because they're not going to be U.S. citizens. You're going to continue to have your children. So it's really not a good deterrence issue, I believe. If anything, it's just going to get people more upset and probably even have more kids. That's what one of my clients said. That's what one of my clients said. And I'm like, I never thought about it that way. So having said that, it's been decided by the Supreme Court. I don't think that I will ever see Congress, in my lifetime at least, passing such law. And what we have is an executive action. And I want us all to think of DACA. How many years has DACA been in court? I mean, years, right? It's been like executive action. It gets canceled. Executive action. It revises it. And it's because of the court system in this country. We live in the United States, which means that because their rights and their laws regardless of what this administration wants to do with DACA, DACA's still there, right?
Sí.
It's been a long fight. So it could probably be a long fight. We have 2 federal courts who have already blocked that executive action, and they knew that was going to happen. So stay informed, reject fear. I don't think Congress, because
it's not going to happen anytime soon, basically.
well, in
right?
order for it to become a law, Congress, both houses,
Imagine-
the House of Representatives
imagine
and the
that.
Senate.
That's a long
I don't
Yeah,
think we
that
would
is
allow that as a community, as U.S. citizens. I
That's
just think
changing
that
the Constitution.
yeah,
Completely.
that's what, only Congress can do it.
O sea,
And it's never been
within
done.
the
That's
people
important
people
to
say it's impossible. Well, remember that within the word impossible is possible. It can happen. It will take a big
long
fight
time.
and a long, because there will be a lot of back and forth. Pero aquí que pase esto, si es que llegara a pasar, yo la verdad no creo que pase, Jessica. My positive mind, I'm Joy from Inside Out. My positive mind is telling me it's again a fear tactic. Because you brought up a good point during our production meeting. I know that the executive order says that it would strip birthrights from parents that are undocumented, right? But honestly, there's so much fear being, spread out that, wait, does this affect first generation, first, because we're first gen. And I'm thinking, wait, what if our parents were also
far is
like,
this
It will
gonna
never
go
be very
back?
retroactive. So you need to know that an executive action is not retroactive. It can't go back. It would be as of this date, this is when it's going to happen. And if you remember when it was signed, they said 60 days from now. Why? Because in less than a day, the lawsuit was already filed. So there are a lot of tactics behind everything that's happening. And that's why you need to stay informed with programs like yours, where you know people are going to be objective. And it's not about fear. We need to talk about what's happening, because that's important.
Of course.
But at the same time, we're giving people hope. People that are watching us are going to be so grateful, because they're going to say, oh my goodness, this is the first time I hear that that could not happen unless Congress were to. And if I want to give hope to the entire country, because yes, we live in California, so a lot of my point of views are because I'm a lawyer who has practiced here for 22 years. But I need you to know that here in California, we had a proposition that said that children of undocumented aliens were not gonna, back then, were not gonna get schooling, that they couldn't go to school. Do you guys
Prop
remember that?
187?
Was that 187?
Remember that?
Yeah.
187.
Well,
forgot
that's
about
what.
that
Yeah,
prop.
the first time I heard
protested
undocumented
that.
aliens was back in the day, and I was like,
Yes.
"Wait, what? They're calling our people aliens
Exactly.
now?"
Yeah.
So why am I
That was
telling
Pete
you
Wilson.
this?
Yeah.
Because if you come to California now, you will see how immigrants are protected,
Yeah.
how you have so many rights statewide, because we have federal rights, right? I mean, the way that the Constitution protects us, but here we even have more laws that protect you if you live in the state. Now, I'm not asking you to move here, but I just share this info so that you know that we are growing in numbers. It's something that you mentioned earlier, and that's going to happen all over the United States. What that means is that our vote is more important than ever. So if you have a son or daughter who's over 18, my question to you is, why haven't they registered? Because statistics show that they're not registering and they're not voting. So I leave you with homework. Send your kids to register so that they can vote.
Right on.
Very important
Right on. Right on. Right on. I literally was talking to my plumber yesterday. I'm not going to say his name either, but he was telling me, like, you know what? I'm going to admit, he's like, I didn't vote because I didn't like my options. And I said, how sad is that, right? That you lose the privilege that so many people wish they had. And lo regañé. Dije, I know that the options were not the best, many for many, but you know what? You cannot let your power go to waste. It's ese voto sí cuenta in the eyes of many. Nah, mi voto no va a contar. One vote more, one vote less.
Yeah.
Trust me, the vote matters. But
does
people
matter.
only think of themselves. And they don't really think of the bigger picture
Right.
for others.
Right.
So I le regañé. He kind of saw the... Prométame que la próxima elección tiene que votar. No le estoy diciendo con quién o por quién. But please vote, because it does make a world of difference. We need to let that sink in.
Yeah.
It has to.
every vote matters, and I think there's a lot of people who don't think that a lot of these things affect them, and so when you're looking, but there were a lot of people that voted that didn't think that some of these policies were going to affect them, and now you have farmers in the Midwest that are about to lose their farms, and they voted for someone who they thought was going to be on their side, or you have Latinos that didn't think that they were going to be deported, and now they're on their way out that wanted to vote for somebody like this. So it's really important to get educated. It's really important to know that even if it's not you directly, it's people around you, it's your community that's being affected and it's being changed. And it's really important to know the facts because of all the misinformation that is happening. There are stories that are being told to you to make it sound right. And it sometimes isn't. And so question everything, question everyone, and be a problem explorer. You know what I mean? Like look at the different ways to answer questions because there isn't just one way. That's really important to do. And I think, Jessica, what you were mentioning, just getting informed and knowing your rights. And for us, that the community around, I think those organizations are really good. Is there any other way for us that feel so helpless during this time?
Impotent is the word for many of us. Like, ¿cómo ayudamos? We feel like we're doing something with this platform, but sometimes I feel like it's not enough.
Yeah, that's, I think all of us could feel that way, but I really believe that just by the fact that you spoke to that one person, that plumber is going to go and tell someone else, right, in regards to voting. But when it comes to, because we cannot take away from the fact that even though, yes, we need to be realistic about what's happening, reality is we're going to see more deportations. As we speak, there are operativos que están planeándose para aquí, para Los Ángeles. So de que va a pasar. Y que van a ser grandes números, van a ser en grandes números. Y para mí, like I always tell my clients, one person, it's already a huge number for us, right? So what do? Just continue to share information that it's objective, that it's the reality, because people need that. I can tell you that they're so exposed to the negative that they're looking for that fresh air. They want to come out from under and they just want to see hope. They want to hear, this is the sadness of the story because it's the reality. But at the same time, somebody's telling me as it is, and they're not just injecting fear. So keep doing what you're doing.
I mean, there's people that don't want to come out of their homes. I mean, we all have stories of
I have family
people that we know that don't want to get in the car and drive somewhere or go to someone's event. Yeah, people do have fear.
Moms are paying a mom who has status to go and pick up the kids. Why? Because they don't want to be in that situation. Listen to me very carefully. What's going to happen, it's going to happen. If they do not respect their rights, believe me when I tell you, the ACLU will file a lawsuit just like this after all the facts have come in. Because we don't have all the stories yet. Things are going to happen. Detentions are going to happen. Deportations are going to happen. But there's not enough information as of yet. But when the facts come out, and if your rights have not been respected, the lawsuits will start being filed. Because that's what America is. America protects you. I'm talking about organizations like ACLU.
Right.
They've been doing this for ages, and they protect the rights of every human being who is trying to find justice.
That's beautiful to know. Well, I think to wrap up this episode, because I know we can go on for hours, like you said, because there's so many angles, muchas patitas, como digo yo. But I think we covered, the most important stuff that we need to know now for our subscribers. And I'm sure you know someone, whether you're an immigrant yourself, or you have a family member or a friend like myself now affected by these policies, or simply just want to be a better ally. That's what we want to be.
Yes.
Comadres Unfiltered,
spread the word.
This podcast, we want to be a better ally by having this conversation with you. It is uncomfortable, but you know what? Anything that makes you uncomfortable, you got to talk about it. Because that's the only way to get through the uncomfortable moment. So we invite you to listen to this episode again, because I know there's a lot to digest, many notes to take down. So when you can, with a cup of tea or coffee or vinito like me.
Algo para
relajarnos.
So you can listen.
And you know what? More than that, just share this episode with an open heart. Open arms. Open mind. Let's not judge right now. We don't need that. Let's just share with an open heart, with an open mind, with an open arms. There's someone that needs to hear this. They're not alone. Tú, mujer que me escuchas, que estás nerviosa, que estás ansiosa. Por cierto, ansiosa. Te recomiendo este libro, ¿eh? Buenísimo. Combatiendo la ansiedad. Jessica Dominguez. She wrote it during the pandemic, right? It was during the pandemic. It helped me like you had no idea.
That
because I was going through so much. Y me ayudó mucho. This is a great book. Y mira que ella no lo trajo, ¿eh? I can tell you she did not bring the book. I brought it from my library because this helped me in tough times. But yeah, mujer que you're going through anxiety, stress, because this is a harsh reality. Now is the time to band together. And I know that this saying is trillada, como decimos en español, overrated maybe for many. Knowledge is power. Yes, knowledge is power. Knowing your rights, like Jessica said, us sharing the information is literally what's going to give us that best evidence
And
to
we're
know
gonna
that
link
we're not in the
everything.
darkness.
Yes.
We're not in the
And
darkness.
just to bring it back, circle moment to the beginning, which I loved what you said. And I think the most important thing to really focus on is on hope
Yeah.
and not fear. And, so when you said
Yes.
that, I just thought of all of the moments that you are losing in your life because you are feeding into the fear. When, maybe find solutions to those fears and those problems. So if you don't want to drive, maybe have an Uber or have somebody else drive so that it doesn't impact your life negatively, because staying home is not the answer either. And so we have to find those common grounds of hope and, and moving forward with your life. Don't pause your life during this time.
Yes.
But is there something that you can maybe share? Any advice that you would give to our audience?
Yes, I know we have a lot of moms watching us. This is the moment where you sit down with your kids and you tell them that we can see things with glasses that are going to see everything dark, or we take off those glasses and put on our glasses of hope. Teach them to choose hope and faith over and over and over, because this is part of history. You and your kids are being part of history. And let's not close this chapter yet, because the whole story has not been written. You will come out of this.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah,
What a
Jessica.
beautiful way.
Pegachitos. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
that's
not
great.
the end of this chapter. There will be a new chapter, a new hope,
Yeah.
Together, comadritas, comadre tribe, what do? We uplift and support each other. We have to uplift and support our immigrant community. And there is that beautiful saying that I have always shared and carried with me throughout my college days and career days, and now my independence, going solo here and with this beautiful project with my comadritas,
Yes.
Mindy, Diana, and Janet, and you, Jessica, our fifth comadre today. This really has helped me. And that's why we align so well with you.
Thank you.
Faith over fear, always.
Always.
Faith
Absolutely.
over fear, always. Con todo y miedo. Porque el miedo va a existir. Es parte de la naturaleza humana. It is part of human nature to feel fear. It's just the way we're cut out. But faith should be always stronger
Yes.
and over fear. So, con eso les decimos,
Yeah.
no están solitas. And we thank you again,
Thank
Jessica,
you, Jessica.
for being here.
So informative.
I
And
loved
thank
it.
you.
Oh,
Wonderful
thank you.
tips,
Thank
and we're
you.
going to link everything under our page, right?
Yes.
All the links
Yes.
that Jessica mentioned too that are so important.
Because you have so many platforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which are, pues una vez, dinos cuántas plataformas por donde te pueden seguir todas las comadritas.
Oh, tan lindas. Nomás busquen Abogada Latinas.
Ah, sí.
Estamos en TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
You're on
YouTube.
TikTok.
You're on
Yes.
TikTok.
I'm not even on TikTok. Oh, mírala qué moderna. I love it.
My family de TikTok me
great.
quiere mucho.
Sí. She's got a great
Yo
support. You
también.
know who? Her sons.
Yes.
Me los saludas mucho. Guapísimos, by the way. Ya
Tan
tiene novia, por
linda,
cierto.
gracias.
Ya los quiero casar.
El mayor sí, pero el menor todavía. Por si acaso. El
¿En
menor,
serio?
Sí,
Pero
sí.
espérame, ¿el menor es el altote o cuál es? Ese
No, JP, el que va al gimnasio, que lo ves en todos.
Sí.
Él ya tiene novia, sí.
Ay, chicas, I'm sorry. Because every time I would like share a picture with your son,
Yeah.
las chicas like, preséntalo. Sorry. Oye, ya huele esa suegra.
Sí, ya se viene, yo creo. Y mi Yashuita no se queda atrás. Mi Yashua, cuando lo ven, piensan que es griego porque tiene esa carita.
Yes.
Huevo, también.
Yes.
Pero todavía no le ha llegado. Y we were just praying for his wife this morning, actually. Siempre le digo, hijo, yo he orado por tu esposa desde que antes que naciera. So, as I was praying, I'm like, y Dios, yo sé que ella está orando por mi hijo. Asegúrate que sea buena, que se va a cocinar rico.
Let me tell you something. Jessica's family is one of the most
cute.
beautiful,
Oh, you're so
powerful, healthy, just happy families that I've met in this country. La familia, you're the epitome, your family's the epitome of what a family should be. United, hijos de oro. They cook for you because I've seen them share those meals that they cook.
The boys cook.
Peruvian. I mean, can you imagine the menu in that household?
Yeah.
Y un esposo que
Jessica's from
obviamente
Peru also. That's
así
amazing.
es. Pero un
Great.
esposo que también, gracias a que él te ha apoyado,
Sí.
tú has podido crecer y florecer en tu carrera. 15 years really quick. We have to know
Yes,
Jessica
I know,
Dominguez.
this is such a good
15
story.
years of being just a house mom, just su casa y sus hijos. That's it. 15 años dedicada a su casa, sus hijos, su esposo. ¿En qué momento se convirtió abogada? One day you were just like, I need to do something more than this. And you started to study law and while raising kids. Who does that? Jessica Dominguez.
Jessica does that. That's
Gracias,
amazing.
chicas. Gracias por invitarme. Qué bonito.
Wow, what an
Thank you.
inspiration.
Comadritas, thank you. And as you know, you're an icon for our community too. Thank you for being a role model. So many of us need that in our lives.
And I know this will not be the last time we have you here because with the laws changing and shifting almost every month, there's new things coming up. I'm pretty sure we're going to have you back.
Será
here
un
with
placer.
us.
Pero solamente si para la próxima también tengo una capacidad.
A lot of our comadritas have been sending us messages
They
on
want the cups.
like where do we, they're like we
It's
love
coming. It's coming.
they're like we love you girls, but where do we get them? And I'm like, si supieran no las encontré. Pero mejor no les voy a
Merch.
decir.
No,
We're gonna
no,
make them
merch.
y vamos a vender.
We're working on merchandise.
We're going to be part of the 1.3 trillion business economy injection. We're going to do our part.
That's right.
Bueno, yeah. We could be here for hours, Jessica.
Yes.
But I know that you have a lot
Thank you so much.
work to
Yes.
It
do.
was my pleasure.
Gracias,
Yes.
amiga.
Thank you, Jessica.
Ya eres
Thank you,
comadre
sweetheart.
oficial.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ya es comadrita. Ya es comadrita
right.
oficialmente.
She's part of
Jessica
us
Dominguez,
now.
gracias. Nos vemos. We love you.
Bye.
Subscribe.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to see your reviews and hear your thoughts. You can also follow Comadres Unfiltered on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for more updates. New episodes every Tuesday. Until next time, comadritas.